Welcome back, you lovely lot, to Cowland on Cars, the channel where we celebrate all things made in 1973. And I do apologise in advance. You can probably hear I'm a little bit gruff today. I've got full-on man flu, and everybody knows, all you men out there know, it's worse than childbirth, worse than the plague, worse than just about anything. But the show must go on. You must be entertained every week. And we're going to delve back into one of my favourite cars in the fleet, probably what will be one of my favourite cars ever, the beautiful 1973 GT Beetle. Now, you may remember, and if not, please watch the videos. If you haven't seen those, please do watch them. One is the buy, and in the buy, obviously, we put it out the garage where it's been for 10 years. The second video, we get it running. But the one thing I haven't done yet, believe it or not, I haven't driven it. I've not been in this car other than around the yard just to amaze myself with the condition. I haven't driven this car, so I thought we could do that together today. I thought that'd be rather fun. But the other thing I want to do today is explain what makes a GT Beetle a GT Beetle, and then go through particularly on this one, the amazing things that Terry, the original owner, added to make it his own, most of which, almost all of which, I want to keep because I think it's a little testament in time, a little time capsule of what people were doing in the late 70s, early 80s, before what we call the Cal look, the California look, came along in the early to mid 80s and totally changed the way that people customise Volkswagens. So what is a GT Beetle anyway? Well, imagine, if you can, the year is 1972, you're Volkswagen UK, you've had a good time of it, you've managed to sell 300,000 Volkswagen Beetles. The nation has taken the car to their heart, and you want to celebrate somehow. So what you decide to do is do a lot of manufacturers do and build a special edition and pile a load of extra goodies onto a relatively basic car. So each of these cars, they made 2,500 of them for the UK market. They were all made in Belgium. And the idea was that I think it was 50% were done in the yellow, 10% were done in the apple green, and 40% of the cars were built in this colour, the tomato red. They all had fruit colours. And it was just a lot of value. So for 19 extra pounds over a standard car, they loaded them with stuff. And for that reason, because it was all really good stuff, these are cars that people really love today because they probably drive better, are spec'd better than a lot of cars from the same year. There's also a few firsts that we saw on this car, which later became standard down the line. So let's start nerdy, shall we, and get even nerdier. The first thing, if you want to know whether you've got a real GT Beetle or not, although this could easily be faked, couldn't it? When the cars went down the line in 1972, they actually put a little rivet on the air vent just here, which serves no function at all, other than to tell the guys as it's coming down the line, it's a GT and therefore should be fitted with certain things. What those things are, I'll tell you in a moment. But also the other way to tell the fact this is obviously a German car made in Belgium, if it's got its original glass, all the glass will still be marked with the BE Belgium marks. Getting very nerdy already, this. Believe me, it will get worse. Now, inside the GTs, the idea was to give an air of luxury, of refinement for your £19. And the first thing they did was fit this padded dash, which I've had in a few Beetles. The standard Beetle is just a bare painted dash. I think it looks really nice. But the padded dash does give it that air of road safety, that air of luxury. This one's particularly nice because it's got the unipart radio. The other two things they put on was a very cool rifle cross-drilled gear shift. Now, this has been changed on my car, but also you've got the centre tunnel, which is actually a really good thing to have in a Beetle. It goes on the transmission tunnel. Mine's full of period extras, but we'll come to that in a minute. So that were the things that made the interior a bit posher. You also got cloth seats, where most Beetles had vinyl, and you also got these very nice, very period, beige door cards. The GT Beetle was going to have GT credentials. More power was always on the cards. So to cope with that, they did two things. Number one was to give it disc brakes on the front, which is something they always used to do for the higher power models. But again, this was quite a lowly spec and very, very competitively priced. It was unusual to see discs on that. And they created this iconic wheel, the GT Beetle wheel. Road style wheels had been done before. This was the first Beetle model to have them on. I think it really suits them. Now, around the back of the car, there were also a few treats. Now, it was the first time we saw these, what we call the elephant's foot rear lights, which made the car look more modern. I prefer the smaller, earlier lights, but you have to admit, in terms of safety and visibility, these ones hit the spot. They also did this for the first time ever. Now, there were loads of ways you could badge this car. You could have it as a 1300S, or if you wanted to, and believe it or not, if you're prepared to pay the additional insurance, because the premium went up, you could have a GT Beetle badge. And for all you pub nerds out there, you'll know already, this is the only classic air-cooled Beetle where the word Beetle actually appears on the deck lid. It's the only time Volkswagen officially referred to it in badging. And under here, brace yourselves, a 1600, about 50 horsepower. It's just not a quick car, but as we're about to find out in a minute, quick enough. Because The other thing they did is underneath, they swapped the gearbox for what they call the freeway flyer gearbox, which is a really nice ratio. The GT Beetle gearbox, particularly amongst the air-cooled drag racers, is always the one that everybody goes for. It's a really peppy, really well-selected gear ratio. And it means this car will do, again, brace yourself, 80 miles an hour, which doesn't sound very impressive today. But you've got to remember, this is the 70s. 80 mile an hour for your family car, easily breaking the speed limit. That was impressive. So hopefully you can see the GT Beetle is a pretty extraordinary Beetle anyway, in any condition. And if you've watched the last video, you'll already know underneath this one is mind-blowingly clean. It's had the easiest life in the world. But what makes this particular Beetle very special is the fact that Terry, during his time with it, lightly customised it very tastefully with all the kind of stuff that people were doing at the time. And it's given us another layer of attraction, well, for me certainly, who loves cars to be slightly modified, with all the bits he put on. So let's have a look at those. The one thing you can't miss at the front of the car is this, the Cami front lip spoiler. I adore these. I think they're so 70s, they're so right for a Beetle, and they just give it a little bit of extra aggro at the front, a little bit of extra chunk. I would put Cami front lips on everything. The other thing you may have noticed is this. Now, a lot of people did these at the time. These were called Beetle bouncers or bug bouncers. There's an awful lot of ironwork behind this. I think if I take this off, which I think I might do, is the only thing. I understand why I did it, because these really do protect stone chips. Probably doesn't do an awful lot for aerodynamics, but these were designed to stop the front of your Beetle getting chipped, but they also reduce the headlight output as well. So I'm going to take this off, move the front number plate somewhere down the line. But yeah, it's probably saved the front of the car. It's probably saved an awful lot of stone chips, and it's done its job absolutely beautifully. But again, in those days, before bonnet bras and things like that, this is what people did to keep their cars show perfect, ready for Sunday show and shine. And on the bonnet here, we've got this. Now, this is making me laugh as an Impreza owner. It's kind of like almost like a prototype Impreza intercooler scoop, isn't it? But underneath here is the vent, the fresh air vent, which also used to corrode quite badly and fill with water on certain Beetles. So I'm guessing not only does this scoop more air in, but also stops the rainwater from getting down there as well. Now, I don't know who made this. I'm sure if I go back through all the Safe Motoring magazines that the car was in, I might find out. But if you do know, leave it in the comments. I've not really seen one before, and even Pete, are just campers who's seen everything. Even he'd not seen one before. I'm sure there's somebody out there that knows what it is. Put it in the comments, let me know. But it's when you get around the back of the car, you can really see what a legend we were dealing with here. So we've got some beautiful, beautiful period modifications. And I can remember going to shows in the 80s and seeing these the first time around before they became ironic, really. This is an Autoplas rear vent blind. Very cool, a little bit rattly, but who cares when it looks that good? Again, the most 70s thing you could possibly fit to a Beetle. Beetles don't have a very big back window anyway. This reduces the rear view even further, but I just think it looks so good. Proper poor man's Porsche stuff. This is the Cami vent cover. Again, a little bit like the vent on the front. The rainwater used to go through the vents on the deck lid and get the engine wet and get the electrics wet. So this was considered to be a great way of letting the hot air out without letting the rainwater in. And then finally, and I so vividly remember going to German, Swedish and French, which I'm sure you know is what GSF stands for these days, and buying my zoom tube for my car just up the road in Nottingham here, my 72. One of the first mods I'd done after the steering wheel was to put a zoom tube on it, and they just looked so good and they sounded so good. If you couldn't afford a full exhaust, a zoom tube, which is basically the standard silencer just into a bit of drain pipe with a bit of chrome on it, was the answer. And again, it's what everybody did at the time. But it's when you get inside that the real treats start. You can't miss them, can you? These Cobra Montreux seats. Now, these are a very rare seat, and this fabric is called Grey Sunburst. It's just so of the time. I can vividly, again, remember Keith Hume, who then became the editor of Volkswagen later down the line, had a beautiful orange fastback, which he had Cobra seats with orange sunburst and had the door cards done to match. Absolutely iconic, so of the time. And they're also really comfortable seats. The other thing is as well, Terry's put these seat runners much further back than the standard seats. If you're tall like me, loads more leg room. We've also got an aftermarket wheel, I'm guessing by the stud pattern. I don't think it's a Mountney, I think it's an Astrali. I might put a Mountney 4-spoke on because Mountney have re-released their 4-spoke. And this sits a little bit further away than I'd ideally like. We've also got this aftermarket gear shift. We've got the oil temperature gauge as well. And of course the St. Christopher and the Auto House sticker, which is again, just so period. If you're into Volkswagens, and you have been for a long, long time, you'll recognize things on here that you remember the first time around. And you'll understand why I think this car is so very special. But it is a wonderful place to sit. But I think we'll have a lot more fun if we go out for a drive. Do you want to come with me? Right, 10 years in a garage, fully serviced and checked over. let's take it for its first run in a decade. I'm very excited about this, actually, I have to say. Clunk click every trip, as they used to say in the 1970s. It will, of course, start on the button. Thank you for doing that. Gear shift is like silk. Now, the tyre pressures are slightly over. I like a nice double D clutch on a cold gearbox. Quite old school like that. But the first thing I'm feeling is just, like Pete said, just tied together. Just feels like a very, very low mileage car, which, although it's not a high mileage car by any stretch of the imagination, it's not really a low mileage car. It's 70 odd thousand miles. You can tell it's ready for a run. I used to have a technique in my own 72 which never idled correctly. Basically, it was left foot braking, so I used to tip it into neutral, brake with my left foot, keep the revs up so that I wouldn't stall. I don't think I'll have a problem with this. It already feels and sounds very, very happy indeed. And it's just an amazing bit of nostalgia for me. So my first car when I was 16 was a 1972, as I keep saying. God, that gear change. I saved up all my pennies during a summer holiday to buy it when I was 16 to get it ready for when I was 17, because that car, which was then only 18 years old, or 17 years old, same age as I was, basically needed a load of work and a load of welding. This car, which is so much older, needs none of that. But what's amazing is the second you get into a car that you spend all of your childhood driving, all of your young adulthood, it just comes flooding back. Except for this one's way better than mine ever was, even after I've done all the work to it. Nothing better than an original non-restored car in really nice condition. The handbrake feels good, the gear change is so sweet. The engine sounds happy. I see that we haven't got any petrol showing where I know we've got loads in. So hopefully we haven't run out. We've just got a broken sender. These are all jobs to do. We're in the early days of this. So let's feel the raw power of the 1600. She likes to go. I have to say, she likes to go. A little bit of a hesitation. When we are asking a lot, we're doing a heady 40 miles an hour now in the 40. But the first thing I can tell you now is just the sweetness, the smoothness, and the pure nostalgia. Now, in my car, I put one-piece windows on back in 1990 because that very much was the cool thing to do. And you now realise what a genius design the quarter lights are. Although they look less pure, but they are brilliant at sort of ventilating. They're the aircon of the time. To be honest, all you need. Now, a Beetle that's well sorted like this will easily keep pace with modern traffic, as long as that traffic isn't going too quickly. And it just sounds so happy. The little click click as I'm double declutching the clutch, I remember that so vividly from my car. Now, I double declutch everything. I was doing this on the TR7 the other day and people saying, you don't need to double declutch. There's a synchromesh on all these cars. And of course you're right, there is. But I guarantee it doesn't matter what car you've got, even if it's something brand new. So I am lucky enough to have a 997 with the Porsche quick shift on. Porsche even tell you to double declutch that car when it's cold. And that's a car that's not that old. Double declutching, no matter how old the gearbox or what kind of gearbox it is, will always just make the gearbox a little bit happier. So if you just bring in the clutch up as you're going across neutral, all gearboxes change more smoothly. I don't care what age the car is, quite frankly. So she's warmed up a little bit now, and you can feel just how happy and smooth a Beetle is. I've never really had a Beetle that doesn't feel 100% better from plugs, points, valve timing too. We didn't touch the valve timing, but funnily enough, it seems to be absolutely spot on. It's not to say that we won't have to do it in the future, but for now, just for a first pass, it does feel very together and very happy indeed. What a gem. You can't believe that just from a day's work, there's more to do, as I say, but just for a day's work, how beautifully this drives off the box, how good the brakes feel. I had a few people saying in the last one, why would you not change the fluid? I'm sure we will change the fluid down the line, but the fluid's in great condition, and also the pedal on this is absolutely ridiculous. You can stand it on its nose. I won't do it now because there's a car behind. But it brakes perfectly, it really does. The pedal is absolutely fantastic. If you leave brake fluid for a period of time, normally it absorbs moisture. It's not a great thing to do. But I think this car has had an intermediate service because that brake fluid is not 10-year-old fluid, and also it's had new calipers, new lines, which I don't think were done 10 years ago. I wonder if the car's been out of the garage and just fettled, or someone has fettled in the garage during that time. It's just lovely. Like I say, it just completely takes me back. I'm 52 now. You have to remember the first time I drove one of these was when I was 16 at the airfield. My dad would drive it down, I'd drive it round, and then he'd drive it back. And that's how I learned to drive, basically, in one of these. Right, we've got a slightly open road. Let's open the taps. You can hear that roaring through the zoom tube. It's just so sweet, it's so together. It does not drive like a car that's old as I am. We're both the same age, but this car feels much fresher. It really does. It's what a joy, what a delight. And also the tracking on this, the wheel position is absolutely perfect. Can't tell you how much this means to be back in a Beetle. So does a 1972-73 Beetle still work as a daily driver today? Now I don't think I'd ever run this in the Soul because it's too nice. But you totally could drive this every day, and because it's got good heater channels and good heat exchangers. I've just tried the heater, it works perfectly. Nice little downshift there. It's still a useful, usable car, and of course, because it's tax exempt, it's MOT exempt, it's ULEZ exempt. In so many ways, it's a brilliant car to drive today. And of course, there is nothing better for the environment than recycling a 50-year-old car and keeping it going. That is a happy little engine, which makes a happy big driver. So thank you for tuning in to probably the most nerdy episode of Calendar on Cars that we've ever made. And hopefully you've got some great facts there, facts to impress your mates down the pub, facts for your next pub quiz, or if you're on a hot date, they will want to know what makes a GT Beetle a GT Beetle. I absolutely guarantee it. And she drives well, so I think this is just the start of many adventures in this car. But do stay tuned and let me know in the comments what you'd like to see. If there's any jobs on this car that I'm going to have to do or you'd like me to do, let me know. We're here to share. But like, subscribe, all that jazz. Share the video with your friends because it does actually make a huge difference, all joking aside. And I will see you next time for some Volvo-based fun. See you soon.